The master, Jack Benny. That's it. You know, Jack, how long I've been trying to get you on this show, and I thought we'd really never make it, especially when Bob Hope said that you wouldn't cross the Atlantic unless you were able to hitch a free lift.
You know, Bob Hope, I'm supposed to be mean. You know, it's a character. It's something I do to get laughs. Because I'm really not... Bob Hope, I think, although he's one of my closest friends, is really mean, because how else could you accumulate so much money? You know? Now, he has... First, let me tell you something. He called me, you know, he has a golf tournament every year. And he has a ball in which he is the toastmaster, the master of ceremonies, and he had that eye trouble again. So he called me. We call each other when we need each other, you see. So he called me, and I was in Honolulu, and he asked me if I would take his place. And I said that I would, but I'd call him back and let him know if I could surely make it. So I called him back, and I called him collect.
Naturally.
So when I got back, Bob said to me, Jack, why would you, of all people, call me? I know you're doing me a favor. Call me collect. I said, I'll tell you why, Bob. I have been reading in magazines that you are worth, now you know Time magazine claims that he is worth $500 million. And I said, anybody who is worth $740 more than I am has got to pay for this thing. I figured it out to the penny.
$740 more. And there's a bit more today. Did you see these pictures this morning in the papers of Jack busking on the embankment with a violin? And then you're not supposed to be mean, yeah.
I told somebody I was husking all day. I didn't know what that... Busking.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
How did you do?
Well, you know, these are supposed to be gag pictures, see? But I made 12 pounds while I was out there. I didn't want it to be a total loss, you know.
Jack, apart from doing these things, and we've seen you, you're always a welcome visitor to these shores, but do you yourself recall your first, I mean, apart from us seeing you on screens, your first appearance before an English audience?
Well, that would be the first time that I ever played the Palladium Theater. Now, you know, I used to play there often. Lately, I'd come every other year. And the first time I played the Palladium was about between 35 and 40 years ago. And Val Parnell ran it then, you see. And he asked me if I would be the toastmaster. I believe they called it, what do they call it? Compere.
Compere, yeah.
Compere, something like that.
We're bilingual.
So I said, all right, that I would try it. But I was worried because I didn't know if the same kind of jokes would go over here as they did in New York or in America. So I was having lunch with Val Parnell, and a famous critic, I believe passed away, Hannon Swaffer, came in, who could be very sarcastic. And Val Parnell asked him, he said to him, you know, Jack Benny, I want him to play the Palladium, but he's afraid that his material won't go over here the way it does at the Palace in New York. And Swaffer just looked at me, you see. And he turned to Parnell and he says, well, Jack Benny intends to do his act in English, doesn't he? And I'll say, yes. He says, well, he might be surprised the way we picked it up over here. Then he came to see the show, you see, and in those days, a comedian didn't dress in a business suit. That is in England. Everybody looked like Max Miller, you see. And I was dressed in a nice business suit, and I was the compere, and it took me quite a while to get the audience going. And that night, the next morning in the paper, again, Swaffer reviewed the show, and he said, then out walked Jack Benny looking like a Harley Street physician, you see. Now, this worried me a little bit because in Los Angeles, we have a Harley Street that we don't think very much of.
Was this the trip you made with George Burns and Gracie Allen?
No, we went afterwards with George Burns and Gracie. But that's a long story with the George Burns and Gracie.
Come on,
kid. Huh?
What happened? That was quite a hilarious trip, wasn't it?
Well, he's crazy. I think a lot of people probably know here that he's the fella that, you know, that not only makes me laugh a lot, but insults me all the time. You know, he's my closest friend who is always insulting me. Well, anyway, we were here and we were playing, both of us were playing at the Palladium. And then we went to Paris, and this is a very long, uninteresting story. You want to hear? Anyway, we went to Paris, and then we decided we'd go to the south of France. Now, you have to know George Burns to know what a sense of humor he has. And so I said, I think I've got a great way of going. Let's not fly, but I hear there's a blue train that's just marvelous that goes from Paris to Cannes. Let's take it. So I thought that I bought 2 drawing rooms, one for George and Gracie, and one for myself and my wife, Mary. But when we got on the train with all our luggage, we found out that there were 2 very close together like this. You see, we had to sit like this with the luggage here, and I said, I can't figure this out, and I called the porter over. I said, I asked for 2 drawing rooms. He said, no, this is for 1. I said, but I paid for 2. He said, well, I'm sorry, but whatever in his as a Frenchman. And finally, I gave him a tip to try to get me. And he didn't do it. I kept tipping him, and he couldn't find one. So, well, we sat there like this all the time on the train with our knees practically touching each other and the baggage here. And finally, we couldn't stand it any longer. It was a miserable trip. He said, well, let's go in and have dinner. So we go in to have dinner. Then I realized that I forgot you're supposed to buy tickets to have dinner, which I also forgot. So now we couldn't be served till the 3rd serving was 11 o'clock at night. So again, the 4 of us go back, and again we're sitting like this. We're looking out of the window. Now it's dark. It's a lousy trip, you see. And we're looking like this in the dark. Now we had to wait till 11 o'clock, and we went in and had dinner, and there was nothing left to eat. We had a little wine and cheese. Now we go back and we want to go to bed. So in order to get undressed to go to bed, it was like a Marx Brother picture, you see. In order to go to bed, for George to get in his upper, Gracie had to come in our room, then I'd have to go in their room while Mary got undressed. Finally, we all get undressed, this miserable trip. And Mary's in our lower, Gracie is there, George is up there, and I'm up here. We're just about to go to sleep, and Mary, my wife, says, I'm going to take a sleeping pill. And she said to me, do you want a sleeping pill, Jack? I said, yes, I certainly do. Says, Gracie, you want a sleeping pill? She says, yes. Says, George, do you want a sleeping pill? He says, not me. I wouldn't miss this trip for the world.
And after you've heard us sing, I'm sure you'll agree that you'll be making many more television appearances. The song is Peaches and Pears, which incidentally was written by her father who's here. So let's now meet and listen to GAYNOR JONES.
Oranges, apples, peaches and pears. I wish I was there. They are all I care about. Oranges, apples, peaches and pears. I wish I was there with you. You are so sweet. You I could eat, oh boy, what a treat. But when you treat me bad, I wish I had eaten you. Not really oranges, apples, peaches and pears. I wish I was there. Oh, hey, all I care about oranges, apples, peaches and pears. I wish I was there with you. When I met you first time, you gave no sign you would be mine. But you played it cool down the line. I knew all the time that you were fooling oranges, apples, peaches and pears. I wish I was there. Oh, hey, all I care about oranges, apples, peaches and pears. I wish I was there with you. La, 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 la,
GAYNOR Jones. Well, now let me bring on a pair of newlyweds recently returned from what must be the most publicized honeymoon in history. Up and about and out of the bag, let's welcome Mr. and Mrs. Lennon, John and Yoko.
You're going to shake hands with the gang.
There we are, you know it. That's it. Watch the mics. And now, if you sit yourself down, and I'm sorry, John, that we only got a couch tonight.
It's okay. I'm fed up with that.
In fact, I believe that after your 7 days in bed there, you felt so tired you wanted to come home and go to bed.
Well, we talked to the press from 10 in the morning till 10 at night to try and get peace through the heads, and so we didn't have much rest, really.
Well, now, let me ask you what you've been asked since you came back. Just
Yes.
what were you after? What is this all about? What are you trying to achieve by doing these extraordinary, bizarre things, you and Yoko?
Well, everything we do is aimed at peace, you know. And we spent 7 days trying to communicate through the communication media, that's the press and TV, and to try and tell people who are interested in protesting to do something about it instead of sitting at home talking about it. And for the ones that are doing it in the streets, the only result is front page mirror of policemen getting kicked and or students getting kicked. And there's many ways of protesting. One is you can grow your hair. For us, this is the most functional and suitable way of protesting for the people we are. Now, any ordinary person can give up 1 week of their holiday, which is what we did. You know, it wasn't a fact of anybody, you know, only you can afford to stay in the Hilton.
But
you can do it anywhere.
This, John, doing it with this objective, what does it do for you? What does it do for Yoko?
Well, to us, it's an event, you know, or a happening as people know them better as. And it was just like a stage show, you know.
Well, we felt very good because we got a very good response from people, and we knew that we weren't just us two, you know, there are many people in the world who feel the same way as us.
We got many letters and things like that from people.
You said to me the other evening when you came back from Amsterdam, John, that you didn't really care, or words to this effect, whether people thought you were nuts or not, if you got them thinking.
Right? Yeah, we're willing to be the world freaks, you know. The world's like a party that's a bit depressing and a bit heavy, and that everybody's too serious.
But do you feel that the thoughts you got them thinking now have been helpful thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's the old woman that wrote to one of the dailies saying it was the best laugh she'd had in her life, you know. Well, that was enough for me. She's 73 or something.
Well, let me ask the audience here now. This was your objective. May I get a camera around on the audience? Are there any of you here, and please don't be afraid to put up your hand, who have thought more about peace because of any of the things that John and Yoko have done? Anyway,
Thank you.
somebody there has put up a hand. Somebody here in the front row. Can we get a microphone, say, here? Can we get a microphone to the front row here, for instance? Or somebody who's putting up the hand. I want to see what. Thank you. Sorry. Can you tell me how this made you think more about peace, sir?
Well, I thought it was the biggest piece of rubbish that I'd heard for many, many years. If I can add to this, that when reading the story of them both being in this bag, I did actually wonder as to whether they were refugees from the Lambeth dustman strike.
Yeah.
Did you have a laugh?
Did I have a laugh? I think the example you set to some of the children and youngsters was nothing to laugh at.
What did you think was wrong with two people staying in bed?
The fact of you staying in bed, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, if you stayed there longer, I think it would be better for everybody.
Okay, don't get insulted. Just look in the mirror before you get insulted. Now, what offended you about what we do?
Well, I'm sure I don't mind looking in the mirror. I think I see something better than looking at you.
Well, that's a matter of personal taste now. What offended you, basically? Can you really tell me what bugs you?
Well, not just the one item alone, your general attitude
You
to
don't
the
like my
youngsters,
attitude?
your general attitude to the youngsters in this country, of the way you lead them or attempt to lead them and try to make out that you're not doing anything about it. One minute you tell us that you're trying to create peace in this world and everybody should be happy and joking, and the next minute you're telling us it's nothing. Whether these youngsters take cannibals or anything like this is all nothing. This part of the story doesn't count. You want to tell us all about this peace you want to do. What about some of the other things you're doing?
Well, have you done anything for peace? I mean, particularly, do you think that you've done something for peace?
Yes, I think I have.
What have you done?
Well, during the last war, you know, there were
No,
many
now,
of us.
now.
There were many of us.
Not last
There were many
war.
of us during the last war that spent our times trying to get peace.
Well, let's...
Yeah, I mean, who told you to go? Did you go of your own volition? Did you volunteer?
Beg your
Did
pardon?
you volunteer?
Did I volunteer? Yes, I did.
Oh, well, congratulations.
All right, now wait
what are you
now, let
doing
me-
now?
Making money like you.
Who was the other, I just want to wrap this up. Who was the other person who put up the hand? Were you being serious?
I wouldn't get into this argument for $1 million.
No, there was somebody there, someone else put up their hand.
Thank you.
And you felt it was beautiful? Yes, I did. And did it make you think about, a lot of people seem to agree with you. Did it make you think that you could do something about peace in the world as a result?
Right.
Thank you.
John, somebody right behind you there wants to say something.
The acorn is a
think the acorn
symbol.
is very beautiful. Yeah.
What's beautiful about acorns?
It's a symbol of growth. And if you plant acorns, the tree will grow. But if you bomb it, it won't.
No, a bit of nothing.
Can't you see anything beautiful in acorns?
Oh, yes.
You like trees?
Everyone likes trees.
Well, what do you think we come from? Jam jars.
That's not the top of the wall.
Go on, get it, Johnny!
All right, let me come back to
Yeah,
John
okay.
here.
It's getting me going, this, you know.
Yes, I know. Well, no, I mean, no, we're trying to get a view there.
Yes.
And here's John, the Beatle of 5 years ago. What do you think John of 5 years ago would think of John Lennon now? Is, 69?
What was
Seriously
mine?
now?
69, 59.
No, I mean 5 years ago of now. I mean the
I
John.
can't imagine, you know. I mean, I thought pretty much the same then. Only I was younger, I thought.
Yeah. So your thoughts, you feel, haven't changed. It's just that you've had a chance of expressing them. Is that it?
Yes, you know, and I'm less... I'm more myself, maybe, than I was 5 years ago. If that was... before Hard Day's Night, I was me. After that, I was some kind of Beatle, you know.
Yeah.
John, can I
Rob, yeah.
do you feel that enough people are getting something serious out of what you're doing, or are they reacting to it like this gentleman here, it's just another stunt, what kind of an idiot is this?
Well, you
Do
get
think-
both, you know. You get both, and you get the majority of people that we're not really we can't attempt to communicate with people like him because it doesn't work, you know. But we got through to a lot of people, you know, really. And even if we get through to 5 out of this lot, that's enough, you know. It's better than not getting through to that 5.
I mean, why do you think, now this man in the front row is quite vehement, why do you think so many people seem to have turned against the Beatles? There's an article which is very favourable, you may have read it tonight.
Yes.
Why have we turned against the Beatles, and about you, Yoko? Why do you think people
Because
have?
we and the public and the press between us create an image of people, or the Beatles or anybody else, and then when you don't conform to the image, they get upset, you know, as if we belong to them in that respect, and we don't, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't intend to go around my life looking like Help or Hard Day's Night to suit other people's view of me. You know, I'm changing all the time.
Yehudi?
May I ask a question? Is there anything of your own choice that you would be willing to die for?
I don't know, probably. For peace, no.
You would?
I don't think I'm in a good enough state of consciousness to sacrifice my life like Christ did.
But like this other gentleman who did volunteer.
I wouldn't go in the army for peace. I wouldn't kill somebody else for peace. I'd give my own life for it if I was good enough. I don't think I'm into that.
But you're assuming that everybody is fighting for an equally useless cause. But sometimes it's necessary to fight and to fight other human beings.
Well, that's your opinion, you know.
Yes.
We don't
Christ
believe
didn't say anything about fighting, did he? Or do you believe in Christ?
He certainly was faced with some pretty
Well, do you
bitter
believe
things.
in what he said, or don't you?
I believe in what he said.
Well, did he
yes.
say anything about fighting? All he said
He
was
didn't.
turn the other cheek
I know,
and
but
love
that-
thy enemy. He didn't
that
say
is-
anything about...
He didn't either say necessary to stay in bed, did he, as you did?
Oh, that's outrageous.
If you're going to be, you know, as soon as we get to a point where you can't answer, you have to be sort of satirical about it. Well, you know, there's nothing to say about that.
Well,
I don't believe in killing people.
I don't believe in taking oneself so seriously under
I'm
those
not
conditions.
that serious, or I wouldn't be in bed doing an event like that, would I? Thank you.
There is a kind of contradiction. I mean, when you say take him, he's obviously very serious about the peace thing, but at the same time he's saying if he can get someone to laugh at him, he's not objecting to that.
I think the people that we follow mainly are people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and unfortunately they get killed. Now, we're the only people that have tried the same gig with humor, and I think the establishment or whoever it is that kills these people don't know how to handle humor, and so I have just as much sense of humor as you, probably more.
I hope so.
Jack, you're a laughter maker. Have you ever, say, cracked a gag with a view to not just making a laugh, but making a laugh plus with some political or moral purpose?
No, I don't get into the political field for laughter or ridiculing anybody in politics. I have some true stories that have happened with politicians that are funny and they're nice and they get laughs with. But I would like to ask Mr. Lemon, and I'm merely asking this.
Good on you, Jack.
I'm merely asking this because I just want to know. You know, I'm not trying to be facetious, and I mean, does this all stem from the war in Vietnam?
No.
It
We're
doesn't.
protesting
I mean,
against
is
all
this-
forms
is
of
this-
violence. I think the war in Vietnam is a manifestation of the whole of the world's violence. I think Hitler and the Germans were not the only ones to blame. I think it's a manifestation of man's violence. So, of course, I'm protesting against Vietnam, but also London or anywhere else the violence is happening.
Tell me.
Well, pardon me,
Go ahead, Jack.
Well, what would you think then? Now, for instance, it's difficult for me to voice an opinion because I have no children that can be sent to war. I just lost a nephew just a few weeks ago who was only there 4 weeks and was killed in Vietnam. But I can't actually voice an opinion because if I had a child, it would be a little bit different. But what I'm trying to say is we don't want violence and we don't want wars. Now, whether it's necessary to have the war in Vietnam, I don't know, but it could be necessary for this reason. Supposing we all stepped out of there, America got out of there, Now they come down, the communists come down, and they take it over, which I'm afraid they eventually will anyway. Now, as long as they can take that over, they take the next country over, the next country over,
you were saying somebody
the next
was fighting.
country over. Then in the future, which wouldn't be too long, England and America would be fighting the entire surrounding world, in which we could have really war and, well, the whole thing would be a Holocaust.
So, no.
You don't think they would? Well, I'm just asking. I don't know whether they would or not, but it could happen.
I just don't believe that if the Americans pulled out of Vietnam, that the whole world would turn communist, you know, as a result of that. I mean, oh, well, all right, you know, but I can't answer that on that level, you know. I just don't believe in violence. I'm sorry about that.
All right, we've got to leave it. Sorry.
I don't think the communists could take over the world. I think the fight in Vietnam is business.
We've got to leave it.
And it's not about
serious
communism
note we're
or
ending
anything
on,
else,
but
it's
a
just
very
business.
important note. We really must leave it for another week, indeed for another.